This is episode 4 of 1F Jeff. I'm sitting in my mom's backyard here in northeastern Ohio. You can probably hear the highway in the background and the crickets, maybe. We're going on a family trip, me and my sister, my nephew, and my mom, to Ireland in a few days. So I'm up here until then because we're flying out of Cleveland. Anyway, I decided to try something new for the intro. Lo-fi. Crickets. Or those frogs. I never know. Anyway, this episode is with Chen Chen. He is a professor of engineering at Ohio State. I met Chen Chen in probably 2019 or 2020. I joined this men's book club, and he was already a member. And I think the first meeting that I went to was actually at his apartment, and I remember thinking, like, oh, this is an interesting, outspoken guy. He's, like, very smart, very outspoken about a lot of things. He brings interesting ideas to the conversation. And I was like, I want to know that guy. And so, yeah, we did get to know each other. I was eventually part of his bar trivia team, but I feel like I was kind of a ringer, like the middle-aged ringer. Not that that was a problem, but, like, I was there to answer all the, like, 90s questions, which I did with aplomb. And now after sitting down for 2 hours with Chen, talking to him, I feel like we're even better friends. And isn't that what the podcast is all about? Chen's a very smart guy in ways that I am not, which is always interesting to me to encounter. Ideas that don't even occur to me are things that he thinks about all the time, which, love it, right? Ideas that I probably don't understand are things that he thinks about quite a bit. So, interesting conversation, interesting guy, and I hope you like it. And I hope you will continue to listen. And I hope you will rate, subscribe, review, all that. So that's all. I hope you'll enjoy the episode. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4.
Chen Chen, is that your whole name? Full Chen Chen?
That's my complete name, yeah.
And your parents, did you ever ask them about why they had kind of a lazy nomenclature?
It's common in China.
Is it really?
And, repeated names.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they thought it'd be easier for white people to pronounce.
Well, that's true. And you grew up in Toronto?
Yeah, I was born in Edmonton, and I moved to Toronto when I was 3. So.
And you have, brothers or sisters?
I have one brother. He's in the Bay Area.
What does he do?
He works for BlackRock. He trades bonds.
Older or younger?
8 years older.
Do you guys get along?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
Your parents must be proud. You got an engineering teacher and a BlackRock trader.
Yeah, I mean, don't have to worry about us, so.
So, did you always want to go into engineering, or did you...
I had no idea what I wanted to do out of high school, and I met somebody that was an industrial engineer.
Right.
And nobody knows what industrial engineering is.
I really don't. I'd like to actually, why don't you tell me what industrial engineering is?
Well, I mean, the pitch to the high school students that you can go do anything and you're good at math, so go study this. There's a lot of jobs, and he's absolutely right. It was true back then. It's true now.
Right.
As a field, industrial engineering started probably in the early 1900s with the start of factories. And you might have seen the movie or read the book Cheaper by the Dozen.
Okay.
The parents are actually some of the pioneers of industrial engineering. Huh. Lillian Galbraith is a very famous female engineer, for instance. And they were looking at things like factories, surgical studies, and you do things like stop motion. You can measure how people are moving and then suggest different ways to improve that process.
Huh.
And so that extends to assembly lines, McDonald's, which have you. I'm in a particular niche of that called operations research, which developed in World War II when they brought all the eggheads to help fight the Nazis. So they brought statisticians, physicists, etc., to do what they could to help with submarine targeting, logistics,
Right.
and so forth. So this kind of total war in the modern scale required advanced techniques to kind of make the most out of both logistics and decision making.
What's a modern day, a very base example of something they would hire an industrial engineer for?
A classic example of that niche that I'm in is Amazon, which has very large logistics.
Right.
So supply chain management and logistics is a big part of it.
Right.
And just figuring out where to put all the stuff, all the physical flows of things and the numbers associated with them.
And so when you went into industrial engineering, were you planning to like have a career in it, or where did you go to school, by the way?
I did my bachelor's at the University of Toronto.
Okay. And then did you get a master's?
Okay, so I actually kind of skipped my master's. I have a PhD, and it's a little silly. I did my grad studies at Berkeley,
Okay.
University of California, Berkeley.
Okay.
So the governor signs all the University of California diplomas. And I was like, oh, the governor. All right, that'd be kind of cool having a Hollywood celebrity.
Sure.
And then he didn't get reelected. He lost.
So who'd you get? What was it?
It wasn't great. It was
Was it Jerry Brown again?
yeah, Jerry Brown. Yeah, it's Jerry Brown. There you go.
That's a good guy. So when you finished your PhD, were you planning to become a professor, or were you planning to?
Yeah, I think with the PhD, I was hoping to become a professor.
Right. Was Ohio State your first job?
Well, I did a postdoc at Columbia University in New York,
Right.
and then from there, I came to Ohio State.
And how long ago was that?
So I came here in 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was it exciting to be moving to Columbus? What was your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of trepidation. I come from these big cities, right?
Sure.
Toronto, San Francisco, New York City.
Sure.
And the thing I like about here is that I don't need to actually drive that much, which I thought, Midwest, you'd have to drive everywhere.
Right.
But, where I live, I just bike to work.
Oh, that's
10-minute
nice.
bike,
Right.
walk to a lot of restaurants. It's real nice.
Yeah. I mean, most people don't do that, but it's good that, yeah.
There's an
Yeah.
option, right?
Sure. I wish that it was much more. I haven't ridden the bus one time since I moved here. Have you ridden the bus?
A few times, not
Have you?
much.
Not much. Yeah. But I mean, when I was in New York, I used to ride public transport all the time because I didn't even have a fucking car. So,
Did you use the bus there?
yeah, not as often as the subway, but I
Yeah,
certainly
subway's
used the
what
bus
I-
when I had to. It depended on where you lived. If you lived in a subway desert, you had to use there's some subway deserts out there that they need some industrial engineers to sort out, probably.
That's a socioeconomic, not an engineering
Oh,
problem.
see, look at me.
They don't want to close the east-west gap. Central Park must divide the poors from the rich.
Right.
Though
right,
even
right.
that's kind of changing.
It is, and you can you can drive right across the park. So,
Mhm. But then you need a car in New York.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I mean, people
Yeah.
do have cars in New York. I have a friend who just got a car in New York, and he drives it all the fucking time, and it drives me a little, like, I don't live there anymore, but it does drive me a little crazy, no pun intended, because it's like you have the subway. But he says the subway's gotten terrible since I left, which I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
there are a lot of pushers. That scared people for a while.
There's
I think
a
they cracked
handful of
down.
them. There's a handful of them. I think there's like one or two, and then people lose their minds, just like everything else. It's like the news story. There's one news story about one thing, and everybody's like, "Oh, there's all these terrible things happening." But I mean, millions of people ride the subway every day, and they're fine. So,
Well, it's salient. I mean,
people love hysteria too.
our news has become hyper optimized.
Sure. You got to get that clickbait, right? Got to terrify people or anger people in order to get clicks. Joy does not get a lot of clicks these days, but fear, anger, yeah.
I mean, I think joy is free is the problem. I get like cute puppies on Instagram, and I don't know that there's much
I guess
money
that's
in that.
true, yeah. I mean, there is, I guess, a lot of money in cute kitten videos on Instagram, so I guess cute kitten videos, anger, frustration, these things, fear, these are all the things that seem to be
They
profitable.
probably have a dollar figure. Like Zuckerberg's got a list somewhere.
Like a list that's got every single, the most valuable.
If I were to type in cute kitten on that list, it would tell you the dollar per click.
Well, I mean, it depends. Doesn't depend on how cute the kitten is. I mean, is it a young kitten? Is it? What's the kitten doing? Like, I mean, there's a lot of variables involved, and
You can find that for you.
right.
Facebook is everyone categorized, and you have to dig through a bunch of things, but you can ask Facebook what it thinks of you.
Down to the exact kind of kitten that I enjoy.
I think for me, it said I was black. I thought I was black.
Oh, well, this is how good the technology's gotten at
Yeah.
this point.
Now,
Yes.
I don't know now, but
For our listeners, Chen is not black.
no.
That's funny. I thought you were black. I wonder why. Like, what kind of things are you clicking on Facebook to make? Like, did you
wonder. I
dig
don't
into
know.
this at all? Because it's kind of bizarre that it would think that.
I honestly had no idea.
Huh.
Yeah. It
Huh.
really didn't have me pegged. I found that very strange. Or they just lied, I guess.
I feel like I'm a pretty difficult algorithm to pin down to. Like, I know on Instagram I'm all over the map. So do you like teaching?
I do. I find it an interesting challenge.
In what way?
Teaching is really, really hard. It's hard to figure out what you have control over. Because when you teach, if you do experiments or something, like something very simple, and like, was it Mendeleev growing beans? You need like 100 beans or something to figure out if the fertilizer is any good.
Okay.
I'm not going to teach 100 courses in my lifetime.
Right.
So you don't have the statistics. It's all just vibes. I mean,
Oh, I see. So you're talking about basically whether you're a good teacher or not, and you're trying to.
it's
right.
hard to tell cause from effect.
Right.
And I mean, there's some evidence in literature you can kind of use, but it's not going to necessarily apply to all the courses.
But you get reviews and stuff like that, so you get some idea of how
We
much
get our
the kids
Uber
like
ratings,
you. Oh, right.
which I think it can, you know, it might remove the very worst of it, but it obviously causes issues when you ask students to give 5-star ratings,
Are they
anonymous
really?
reviews.
They're star based.
I mean, it's out of 5, so yeah, pretty much.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But you generally probably get good reviews, or
It started out terrible. I just didn't know the population here.
meaning what?
Well, I mean, the schools I came from and the school I ended up in is very, very different.
Right.
From undergrad to grad school, I was in situations with very high rigor, but also very high fail rates. The U.S. is actually mostly an exception educationally in its, what do you call that? Postgraduate. Anyway, and it's post-secondary, sorry, is the term. And in Canada, I mean, when I went through engineering, they failed more than half the students.
And that's not there. They don't fill that many students in the States.
No. Not. I mean, there might be a few selected programs, but like generally throughout this country, I mean, the median grade's like a B+ or A-.
But does this lead to obviously probably more educated and more prepared students from Canada than the States, or no? Like, is
Maybe,
it because there's better students, or is it because the grading's more lenient, or what's the?
Actually, I wondered if part of it was we don't use standardized testing in
Huh.
Canada, at least not explicitly.
Right.
So I think there's more variance.
Okay.
And you do see something more like this, for instance, at Georgia Tech. So there's a lot of spread. And when I say A+, A-, B+, I think that's probably around like sort of top 50 type schools, fair amounts of grade inflation. I'm not sure outside those environments. I'm not as familiar.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's part of it. It's just that in Canada, without standardized testing, you get people with like 100% averages and don't know basic trig identities, which for engineering is really bad.
I can imagine. It sounds like something. But you'd think C would be the average that you would go with, because C
It used to be.
I mean, it should be, because C actually isn't it supposed to be the average grade, right?
I'd rather have something like that, but no point in being such an outlier, right? If everyone else is going A-, B+ or whatever.
Has the grading gotten easier since you've been there?
Not that I've noticed,
Okay.
but I think it's always been around. Let's say B+. I think
Okay.
it's kind of the median grade.
Huh.
But also I teach upper years. It might be a little bit lower. It's so-called weed out courses, though that's not the intent.
Right.
In the earlier years.
Do you think that has anything to do with the fact that the university, I'm not trying to conspiratize here, but anything to do with the university perhaps wanting to have a higher graduation rate?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Maximizing revenue.
But in Canada, that's not necessarily.
Well, they've actually so even my alma mater has grade inflated a bit since.
Sure, but not like the States.
No.
I mean, universities they're probably not. It's probably different in terms of like profit margins on universities and so on and so forth, I would imagine.
It's weird because profit is not quite, technically they're all nonprofits.
Right.
But the logic is revenue streams from which you can extract enough overhead to support a lot of administrators. Huh. So, I mean, classically you would have like basically one dean, let's say 30 years ago or something.
Right.
Maybe one associate dean or something.
Okay.
My college currently has 10 deans, assistant deans, and associate deans. And the median salary is probably around $200,000 or so a year.
Yeah, I taught for one semester at CCAD, and it was like adjunct shit, and it was just garbage money for so much work, and just like, no, never again.
Adjunct's practically a volunteer position, the way they pay it.
Yeah, they totally fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the whole thing is based on these Uber ratings. on whether to keep staff or not.
So if you're a friendly, jovial professor, you can keep this, and it may be easy, then that's what.
The pressure for grade inflation is very high, and the pressure for academic integrity is pretty low. It's all personal. You have to press against the system.
Do you feel like the system's working?
I think it works better than it should. Considering,
Like, surprisingly.
you know, because money makes the world go round. But there are lots of people with integrity.
Right.
I wonder if part of it is just the salaries are relatively low in academia, conditioned on the abilities of a lot of these professors. So you basically drive passionate nerds. Those are the only ones that would be left.
Right.
And that's the only thing holding things together, and not perfectly by any means.
But you generally still like teaching, like being in academia.
Yeah, I do very much enjoy it. Or I'm insane, right? Because I'm taking a very large pay cut.
Oh, you could make more money that makes sense.
Yeah, like bundles. It wasn't as bad when I graduated. It was maybe 1.5 or 2 to 1 salary multiplier in industry.
Right.
And you get taxed a little more and whatever, and like, okay, it's a lifestyle choice. And just kept going up and up and up as tech and finance have been able to leverage quantitative abilities. So my colleagues out in industry, now the multiple is closer to 5 times.
Do you ever have thoughts of?
I'm not super materialistic or whatever, but sure, that's the outside option. I mean, if I didn't get tenure, I'd just go get a Lamborghini or whatever.
Anything in particular that strikes your fancy, where you'd be like, if I had unlimited money and I wasn't working anymore, what is the thing that I would go after?
I feel like I get to just do that in my job, which is probably what's keeping me there.
Huh.
You know, I get to work with state-of-the-art robotics, with AI systems, with power systems, with healthcare. Pretty much what I'm doing now, and I get students too. If I were super rich, maybe I'd just go do more venture capital.
Bunker.
Be a little bit lazier on my own work, and then kind of just see what other people are doing and fund that, I guess. I don't know.
What's the most interesting thing that's going on at your job right now?
A lot of it is esoteric math.
No idea what that is.
Yeah, I'm like, what's kind of explain? I mean, it connects to explainable things. Like a lot of what I'm working on is down these very esoteric rabbit holes.
Okay.
That may move the frontier of knowledge. But the big picture is really what's driving me, which is that I'm looking at the literal opposite corner of ChatGPT and large language models more broadly.
Okay.
What we consider AI right now, and AI has a way of kind of latching on to the coolest thing that computers are doing at the given moment. So I'm very interested on not that. And one way to think about it is a very big part of what's going on with large language models is memorizing massive quantities of information. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's kind of, if I think like a brain, that's kind of a very big part of that.
Right. What's the word for that? How much input they get? There's a word for that, but whatever.
Sample size.
Yeah, something like that.
Very large sample size. And, you know, they compress, and there's some thinking, and they're doing more so-called reinforcement learning, chain of thought. But that's the part that's rather limited. So memorization, and maybe you can recall things like call the LLM a few times, large language model. And that's search. You're looking for different possibilities. So that's the opposite corner, where I've focused primarily on computational problems involving search. And that has its own very long history. But things like if I have 10 trucks and I need to deliver 100,000 packages, Amazon packages across the city, or where should I put them?
Right.
And that's, I mean, to some degree you can kind of memorize, but the packages are always changing.
Sure.
The traffic could change. And so there's a very large degree of, well, I know how long the roads are, and I just have to try things in some clever way. This is a combinatorial optimization problem, where often dealt with integer optimization. Anyway, there's like all this software. So this opposite corner of search has been parallel progress together with large language models. And large language models, for instance, the very first ones, you get Perceptron in the 50s. It's gotten, I might get my orders of magnitude wrong, but something like over 1 trillion times more compute
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. By compute, I mean like adding numbers together.
Right.
Ones and zeros, beep boop robot stuff.
Right.
That quantitative thing is hard to translate exactly what will happen. Like we just kind of have to see, but it becomes qualitative at some point. But there's actually been equivalent parallel progress in search along the same time. For the most part, you kind of get hardware times software progress. So for instance, from 1990, let's talk about this package routing problem.
Okay.
Getting package routing to a pretty good place is, for the most part, why UPS, FedEx, and subsequently Amazon, Walmart, and such exist as they do now.
Right.
And so let's say you go from 1980 to 2000 or so, the hardware went, again, I very rough order of magnitude, something like 10,000 times faster.
Okay.
Your computer in the same amount of time can execute the same operations 10,000 times faster.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, our search algorithms got better, which means they don't have to look through all the possibilities. With the same beep boop 10 add together stuff, they do more work with that efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of in the same way you get electricity efficiency, right? Lower wattage can a toaster or washing machine, whatever.
Right.
So that factor has been about the same. That's what people might not actually realize.
Okay.
You multiply the two together, you're in the order of 10 million, 1 billion times, something like that.
Right.
So every year, the search algorithms are able to look through 1,000 times more possibilities. Every decade, probably about 1 million, something like that.
Okay.
Sorry, not every year. I'm not quite sure. It's probably like 10% on hardware and software each, something like that.
I couldn't fact check you on that anyway.
So that's leading also to qualitative changes in everything we're doing. It's a big part of what's enabling large scale logistics. Is the software and hardware combined.
Where do you think this is all headed? Where do we see ourselves in 10, 20 years?
I think beyond 10, in my opinion, is beyond what experts can reasonably claim to be expert about.
All right,
I mean, I have fun speculating, but
sure.
like,
I mean, we can speculate.
within 10, I can definitely tell you, because
Right.
I think it's tough for too much to emerge that's beyond what's written down theoretically. Like somewhere there's a paper there within 10 years
Okay.
that's talked something about the idea. Maybe they didn't do perfectly or something.
Okay.
My guess, what I'm seeing is that LLMs have really kind of hit that S curve of technological improvement.
Okay.
So the S curve seems like pretty much every, like, at least niche of technology ends up this way, where it doesn't make a lot of progress. It takes off and looks exponential, and there's all this excitement, and eventually it just hits enough problems that people can't solve, and it
Levels
plateaus.
out. Right.
And maybe some other idea, and eventually gets another S curve or something. So large language models are kind of hitting that, and that's why a lot of the companies, like Microsoft, scaled back on data center investments, for instance, and companies are now exploring more search. So I think a big part over the next 10 years is figuring out if there's a way to balance search and memorization, to combine these two parallel branches. And that's what's very exciting to me, to see these.
And what would this look like in a real world example? Because you can explain this to me in technical terms, but until I understand, like,
Right.
yeah.
We have one engine that seems to be dreaming in some high dimensional alien space. That's ChatGPT and such, right? We all kind of philosophize about that.
Okay.
We have a more traditional use of computers in search that like brute forces 10 billion combinations of possible routes of putting packages and such, and then combined with human mathematics, etc. Some combination of these would give you potentially a balance of both precision and something like creativity and free expression, general ability as well as more specific ability. There's a lot of frameworks on how to hybridize it, but all these frameworks seem to lean very heavily on one or the other right now.
But in terms of, like, let's say, curing cancer, coming
Yeah.
up with new medications, these kind of things that they're talking about, mostly, at least in the media that I read about, in terms of AI, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
How does this, from an insider perspective, if you
Yeah.
will, how does that look?
We find out as we go.
Okay.
I think a lot of technology ends up replacing or highly amplifying a small sliver of what humans do.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes very important, and we start redesigning things around that.
Right.
It's kind of hard to predict that. I mean, on the cancer side, for instance, you have the protein folding won the Nobel Prize recently,
Right.
right? I think it was in chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't just automatically give you drugs. It gives you information that is important part of a cycle of drug development. And now the question and a lot of the work is in reconfiguring that whole cycle to lean more on the fact that we can predict how proteins fold.
Right.
So it's a little hard to say, because to figure out what that will look like or what the impact will be, we need thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to all adapt their workflow around new technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's why basically no one is psychic in predicting, economic impact of technologies.
And are you worried at all about like what is it?
Singularity. I mean,
yes,
AI,
this kind of thing. Yes.
In the short term, no.
What is the short term?
Let's say certainly within 10 years, I don't see anything like what I would consider, a general intelligence.
But do you see do you foresee a possibility that computers somehow find sentience, if or whatever we decide is sentience, and understand their beingness?
I can't dismiss it.
Okay.
Right. On a longer time scale, I have trouble dismissing anything, honestly.
That's terrifying, but
I mean, look, we're just apes, right? We're meant to eat berries in a cave. This is all very hard for us.
right.
And I mean, even physics, right? Something with very solid stuff, particle physics, has incredible predictive power. And I'm not an expert, but I do know these sort of general facts. If you tie that to astronomy and you say, well, we have all these laws and they hold with certainty here, how much of that explains what we see out there?
Uh-huh.
About 10%, right? So I don't know. That means something is very wrong in our understanding. If that most solid thing is like that, I don't know with computers. We know much less. Our laws are less solid about predicting how software will behave.
I think it's interesting that scientists are trying to create what essentially is a super intelligent being that is going to be like we are to birds. Was somebody explained to me one time, how we see birds, they'll see us as birds, and which is somewhat terrifying, but I understand the inclination to not be able to stop, right? Because people are like, why can't they just, if they're worried about it, if this is going to hurt us in some way, like just stop. But how could you stop? How could you possibly stop? Your whole life has been trying to make this super intelligent being. How can you possibly stop yourself? I wouldn't be able to stop myself. I mean, it's
military implications alone mean we can't stop as a species.
Well, I mean, not even military. Just for the sake of making a hyper intelligent being would be. I mean, can you imagine how satisfying that would be at the end? You go home from work and you can be like, "What you do?"
I guess the reason I say military, there's that famous. Did you ever see Oppenheimer?
Sure.
Like the movie.
Yeah.
Well, there was something realistic there, which is that they attempted to estimate the chance of burning the entire atmosphere and killing us all.
Hooray!
On the first experiment,
right?
And it was like less than 10%.
Yay!
10% is a pretty big number, and,
right? No,
they had other reasons to think that number was actually smaller, but they were like, it's war, right? I mean, when there's a war,
we can kill the Japanese
incentive. Yep. And so same with AI. There's no, so it says as we are to birds. But it could also be maybe it's as we are to octopi or dolphins. I mean, they're very smart.
Sure. They're actually using AI, I read, to learn to translate dolphin language, which I think is interesting because I think, frankly, the funniest outcome of that would be that we translate the dolphin language and the first thing they say was like, yeah, fuck off. We know, congratulations, humans. Great job. You translated us, but please, we've been trying to avoid you guys for years, and that's just...
Do you know Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I do.
Right? So we get like a little digital babblefish.
We've already got that right there. The next AirPods are going to be translation automatically in your ear. Yeah.
And the glasses, right?
Yeah.
I've seen the Meta Ray-Bans. I mean, that's just the start of this tech.
Yeah, I've got the Meta Quest, the VR headset thing. It's interesting, but it's not crazy. The first month was fun.
But, there's all this talk about dominate or be dominated with AI, and I understand the fears, but I think a lot could happen. It's all speculation. And maybe, dolphins are smart and they exist, and sometimes we screw them over. But for the most part, live and let live.
They rape too, so
they got their own thing going on.
Yeah.
That could happen. We spawn a new intelligence, and it just sort of does its own thing and leaves. I don't
Yeah,
know.
or the new intelligence learns to, it turns into a, I mean, my reference is movies, so I'm looking at The Matrix and whatever else,
Uses us as batteries.
Right, right. They use us as batteries, which, honestly, maybe we shouldn't have made that film because maybe that'll give them the idea. They're like, well, we have this movie in our database that, anyway. Well, that's not reassuring, Chen, but it's not reassuring. So I suppose that's.
I'm just saying, I'm not psychic, so I
No,
can't dismiss anything.
I think it's a fascinating time to be alive. I think it's all. I've always been a technology geek. Like when I got a computer, I got a TI-99 4A computer when I was probably 12, 13 years old, and this was high tech at the time. I don't know if you know this computer. It was like and you hooked it up to your TV, and your TV was the monitor.
I had an Atari when I was little,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 6 years old or
Right.
something.
This thing had a speech synthesizer on it, which was like a
Oh, really?
$70 add-on. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the games would be like, prepare for battle. And it would sounded like, and it actually had you could put a tape deck next to it, and you could actually save games with the tape deck. It would use the whistling language, like a modem language, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah. I had one of the first early graphics cards, or at least one of the popular ones
Okay.
when those came out. And that tech was used for video games. And then actually this leads into this story I've been thinking about, which is that Steve Jobs, his Apple
Sure.
invented the modern personal computer essentially, and then he got fired, and actually most of his net worth came from what followed. Most of his net worth came from Pixar.
Huh.
So although Steve Jobs' main accomplishment was helping develop the business and leading the business that created PCs, the real monetary impact of at least of his personal wealth came from basically graphics processing units
Huh.
and the creative application. Like a lot of AI, we talk about science and whatever, but what
Right.
I'm very interested in is what will that mean to our expression? And Ted Chiang has written about this actually. I think it was Ted Chiang. He's got like a series of articles on AI.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's very interesting because like Pixar, there's things that computers have made that we could have made in the 1800s or whatever with careful paint
Sure.
or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the paradigms did not exist in the human mind naturally. And we're starting to see that kind of in ChatGPT. Like you can see when the language is artificial. There's some vibe about it, right? Same with
Yeah.
the pictures. And this is just the beginning. Like it's going to change the memetics, the very way that we think about. So like a ball of static, for instance, if you show that to someone before television, they would have no idea what that is.
Right.
Anyone could have drawn static.
Right.
So what is that going to do to the human mind? And
Well, I mean, I think what's interesting to me is what it's going to do to just what we consider the media, like entertainment, all these things. Like we
Yes.
haven't even seen the beginning of it. Like I come from like film background, so like I play with these models that do photos, and like you can do like 10 to 20 seconds of video now, and like there's impressive stuff, but like based on what I'm seeing, like we haven't, like what's coming is going to be insane.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have customized movies. You'll be able to say, I want to see a movie about this, and that'll be the movie you get to see. I don't think that the industry will turn into that, because I think that ultimately what we still do love and crave about the media, about watching movies, is somebody to talk to them about. Like we still want somebody to water cooler chat about, in spite of the fact that there's very few of these anymore. But still, people now go on the internet, look up recaps of shows, whatever it is, blah blah blah, just to see what people are talking about. And I think you lose that if you have personalized media for everybody. But I think there'll be a certain level of that. And that's fucking insane to me.
It could expand our mental horizons, right? I mean, like photography seemed to have driven out realism from paintings, right? I mean, but it also encouraged this new idea like cubism and
right, like postmodernism and abstract
revolutions.
Yeah.
So here also, I mean, what kind of revolution will we get with? Humans, we want to express ourselves. We want a novelty. So when you get this giant, at the moment, plagiarism slop engine,
That's what they were gonna call
but it
it,
also drives out a lot of things and forces us to innovate. And it potentially frees us up to express and connect in new ways.
Well, it points out what the bland bullshit is in a way, because that's kind of what it's doing now. Like that's how you almost like identify ChatGPT, is that it's bland, kind of benign, mainstream bullshit, and you're like, oh, this is not. So maybe in some way it'll actually get people to be more creative in different ways and try to be outside the box. But then, of course, the ChatGPT will catch up and learn to find. I mean, I feel like eventually these models will catch up and find ways. Will the ChatGPT ever figure out that they can make a piece of art object by taping a banana to a wall, for example? You know what I mean? Like, will that kind of abstraction be possible to a computer? I don't know. I don't think so. I would hope not, in a way.
Well, I mean, if it figures out marketing and human agency, it can probably just stand on its own and create its own like virtual corporations, and you know, can AI own things?
Okay, now you're starting to scare me a little bit.
I mean, I think we might be headed there. But
yeah,
you know, things that get automated become taken for granted, right? I mean, like the color purple would have just blown the minds of average Roman citizens, or just salt or something like that.
Right.
And now we think of that as, you know, maybe kind of cheap. Salt's a cheap spice.
If you were the first person to be like, we got salt, can you imagine what it would taste like to fucking have salt on your food for the first time? Your fucking head would explode. Your head would explode.
Yeah.
And it would have cost you a fortune. I had a thought about the ChatGPT, but I fucking got stuck on that goddamn spice tangent. Oh, it was something colors too. I was reading an article about they invented a new color. You probably saw this.
Oh yeah,
right. Which you have to have a laser beam shining in your eye. But I thought it was interesting that like colors still rely on chemicals and things in nature, and so sometimes there's shortages of colors. I never even thought about that. I always thought at this point at this point in this day and age, you've got to have any color you want if you're a painter. But some painters are like having to save colors because they're like, oh, they're not going to make this color anymore. I'm going to get fucked. I thought that was fascinating.
One thing we take for granted is the blue LED.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Like full color LED screens. That is one of the craziest inventions. Blue LED. It involves quantum tunneling and stuff I don't really understand.
I don't. You said quantum tunneling, and my brain
it's unbelievably fancy chemistry.
I mean, even LEDs in general. The fact that like, you know, these lights I've got all over my house, you can buy them for $5. I mean, it's insane to me.
That's our salt, right? When we grew up as someone little, that this would have been worth like infinite money, basically.
Yeah, but I think salt's better than this. And there was never like an LED trade or like a blue light trade. You know, ships with, you know, traveling from China, like the Silk Road of LED lights or something. You know.
So that ties into a question that economists pose, which is that has progress actually slowed down? And in the sense that like going from horses to cars, the steam engine, just absolutely massive. And by GDP numbers, now our smartphone is in some sense like even larger leaps of technology. But
Right.
in terms of human utility, is it actually that big?
It depends on how you define utility, right?
Because part of the issue is a lot of it is free, and it's kind of hard to measure the enjoyment from, or are we enjoying it? Is it just addictive? I don't know. But like the effect of free good, because economists, you know, the typical measure is just how much were people paying for this stuff. If you paid a lot for a horse and it took you forever to travel somewhere, it's kind of obvious how valuable a car is in some sense.
Yeah.
But if a phone has a free app, like at least for now, a lot of this AI stuff is free. So it's hard to slap a dollar value on that in terms of, you know, you can calculate the profit a company can get out of it. People are estimating that. But how much is that really affecting the human experience?
It's an interesting question. I don't know that I agree entirely with whether money is the quantifying measure for technological progress.
Oh,
But
it's certainly not. It's
it's an interesting
just
idea,
something we
though.
have, right? We
Right.
have a measure.
Because you look at photography, and now photography is become. I used to take pictures all the time, and now I don't really enjoy it anymore because now everybody's fucking taking pictures of every goddamn thing.
I think a lot of that has compressed to like the full loop, like content creation, just broadly is now the thing.
Become monetized, and now
Yeah.
everything becomes a dollar sign.
Yeah.
Yay. I mean, it's true though. It's
You know,
unfortunate.
it's like this age of incredible abundance is also of you know, soulless material horror. It's like what
It
they're talking
really
about
is.
the 19th century. It's so funny because a lot of this came from the 19th century, right? They're like, oh my God, we now have cheap cloth. God is dead. Like, what do we? And you're just like, what are they talking? Now it's like maybe now it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
No, God is really
There's
dead.
something
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we elected Trump again, God actually is dead. Although there is a point to be made about people ask why we're in the situation we're in. Now, I'm just not talking about politics, but in a lot of ways, sometimes I am. But, all these things I think point to money in a way, but really on a higher level point to technology.
Yes.
I think that the internet has really broken the world in a way that we are unwilling to even accept or acknowledge because we all love it. We're all so addicted to it and it's all so much fun, but really it's broken the world in a way that I think is almost irreparable. I don't see how we
can't go back.
and I don't see a way that we can fix it. Like I don't see a way that and I'm a very cynical man. I'm very, very cynical. But like I can't imagine a way out of this because like the situation we're in is the media is the model that the internet is basically being built on. So how do you it would have to be an agreement from all humans to be like, okay, we're not gonna or from corporations to say, oh, we're not gonna try to maximize monetization anymore with the things that everybody clicks on.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The pay per click, right, is one of the big.
Right.
That was the backbone. After you get the .com bubble popping, people are like, wait, these companies don't actually make money, and eventually you get megacorps that control enough eyeballs, and they start charging pay per click, and that's completely destroyed media. I listened to this interview. I forget the fellow's name, but someone very important to the development of early internet, and he was trying to put out ideas to, like microtransactions or something to try to get us away from pay per click. But I think it's the divide between human flourishing and dollar signs.
It's
right?
it's a hyper monetization to a degree that we have never really, like, when monetization can get so targeted, so profoundly targeted to where we're at now, then I don't think that there's a way to, when you've got children YouTube, which is really a terrifying world. I don't know if you've dug into that at all, but it is fucking insane.
I've read some articles. I mean,
Just
I
take
see
a look
what
at
my
some
niece
of
and
these-
nephew
Look
watch.
at some of these videos, and like,
Yeah.
some of them are entertaining, but it's like, what on earth are we doing? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that Saturday morning cartoons were fucked up, but like the ads were just, this is like, yeah.
It's like a big psychic engine. It's there to manipulate the mind to capture its attention at all costs, right? With no recognition of flourishing. I mean, that's the issue with pay per click. It's like if I read an article that profoundly changes me and makes me a better person, that's one click. I mean, maybe I read it over 30 minutes or something. You might be able to weigh the click a little more. But then I read a trash article filled with misinformation, and I just sort of, it's rage bait, and I share it to a few people. That's more clicks.
Yep.
The engine likes that better.
Yep. So do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, a bunch. I like, music. We both like music. All sorts, like singing and piano. I picked up some guitar a few years ago.
Do you play by yourself, or what do you play with people, or what do you do?
By myself. I haven't had, going for tenure was very time consuming.
Sure.
But yeah, I like going out to karaoke, and I picked up ballroom dancing. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. When did you start doing that?
What was that? Maybe 3 years ago?
And what was the impetus for that? Just like something you've been curious about, or just?
I think it was the COVID, I think, kind of reset me in a way.
Sure.
And somehow I got in this kick of, let me try and learn things that I feel like I'm bad at. Because I spent so long, through my 20s, doing things that I'm very good at, like music I've done a while and research and whatever. And so I was like, what am I not good? Well, for some reason, I always thought I wouldn't be good at guitar. Just the physical motion is unlike other instruments that I've played. And then dancing, I always thought myself I'm slow at picking up choreography. And that was very, very good for my brain and my soul, is to pick something up, to be a student again. I want to keep doing that, actually. It also taught me to be a better teacher. I've been too used to being fluent at what I do. I forget what the beginner's mind is like.
Oh, right. That's interesting. I also think that getting out of the comfort zone is one of the most important things that we can do. Like, the older I get, the more I'm like, everything fun that happens generally happens outside of the comfort zone. when I don't want to say yes, I'll say yes, and then I'll end up having, the story.
It's a little scary with the pattern of life.
Of course, but
that's what I like about research. But if you do the same thing, I think part of it is memory. If you repeat the exact same patterns, it's not different enough, it seems to me, to actually really remember. The whatever quotidian days.
right.
And then you look back and you're like, what did I do in the last 3 years?
Yep.
Whatever. It's like COVID, especially, again, big reset period. And it's just
Right.
like, well, I had not done as much during that period for obvious reasons. Everything was closed.
Right.
And it's like, well, it seemed like time started accelerating. I just lost parts of my life in a
Well, I
way.
mean, I think that when you talk about the perception of time, we talk about how when time goes so slow when you're a kid because everything is brand new, right? So,
Yes.
And as the things become older and older and older, then time goes slower because you're used to everything. So,
Yes.
like for me, I realized that being in my house, time goes quite fast because I'm fucking comfortable here and I've been seeing all these fucking nooks and crannies and shit. So as soon as I get out of my house, out of my comfort zone, time slows down quite a bit, like when you're on vacation or wherever it is, because it's
Yes.
all new and just trying to find what the mind you were in. It's not like a beginner's mind, like in the sense you were talking, but it's child's mind in the sense that I just want time to slow down a lot. And that's when it does, when everything is new and uncomfortable. And
if you're in a new place, you
Right.
also look at angles you don't normally look, right?
Right.
I look up. I never look up in the
my
city
brain
I'm
thinks
used to.
my brain thinks differently. Yeah. Yeah. And then I get back here and I'm like, ugh.
I mean, I also like comfort. It's just
Sure, we all do. That's the thing. Comfort's
yeah.
the thing. Like I'm trying not to, like the nesting thing is the thing that I'm trying to. When I got back I went to Mexico, I got back, I started selling a lot of my shit because I was like, I was there, I was like, I had like a backpack and like a laptop and a few books and I was totally happy. A few changes of clothes. For 5 weeks, I was totally happy. I don't even want to go back to all this shit. Like I don't want to feel this nest.
Well, and the United States is by far the #1 storage unit.
Sure. Oh, it's
user
disgusting. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world. Like I think we have more than half of all storage units or something.
No, it's like that's
Like worldwide, yeah.
Yeah. But interestingly, I think that the younger generations don't want things because they live in a digital world. So all they want is digital things. So like my nephew, for example, he's 14. I ask him what he wants for his birthday, and he doesn't really want anything.
Yeah, my
Because
niece
he
wants
doesn't-
like Roblox.
Right.
bucks.
He doesn't want any, or whatever on the internet, but he
Yeah.
doesn't want things, right? And which I think it's a double-edged sword, of course, because like I think that generation is not my nephew, but my nephew too. They're all kind of fucked in a way. Like truly, I really have very big concerns about that generation.
I think their mind space is completely different.
Dude, it's
growing up
it's
with-
bad. The social media thing is really fucking them up in a way that I can't even.
Is this even social media? I think in that generation, it might be iPads at that point.
Whatever, all
Like,
the things. Yeah.
Like older Gen Z, let's say in the late 20s, that's social media. In middle school or earlier, that's
Yeah.
disruptive. And it's sort of a yes and. I think there's younger Gen Z seems very different because I'm starting to teach them now. And they seem a little zombified, honestly.
And they're not. I mean, they're not even like drinking or
Like not
smoking.
present when they're talking.
Well,
to
they're not
people.
even drinking or smoking or having
Yeah.
sex anymore because they don't need to because they've got. That's the thing that scares me.
Oh, my students are doing now.
Yeah.
They got multiple screens. They're shopping at the same time as something is on a screen and half listening to lecture and maybe pull out a third screen.
Yeah. It's not good.
Something popped into my head as we were talking about this, which is that alcohol, altered perceptions, right? Each form of drug seems to create revolutions on its own because they're mind altering and people aren't ready for it culturally, maybe even biologically.
Right.
And when you, for instance, alcohol, when you introduce alcohol to peoples that are not used to alcohol, it can destroy societies. It typically does.
Right.
And so these mind-altering things can take centuries to adapt, and possibly even biologically. Like people that get too addicted to the thing get filtered out genetically. I don't know the science behind that, but like I think maybe some of this digital stuff is
it's the new drug.
yes.
Right.
It may actually take centuries for a breed of people to not be zombified by this to emerge.
Right. Or we'll just be batteries by then. So.
Oh yeah, we'll just be replaced.
One or the other. I don't know which is going to be.
We'll be in the goop pod.
Yeah. Either we'll be in the goop pod, and then we'll have to. Yeah.
I don't think there's much electricity in the human body.
I don't know. I don't know what the science says on the Matrix movies. I just know that the only one that was good was the first one because then they started selling I think it was Pepsi with the, like, I remember seeing the first
Wait,
one. and
what?
yeah, I don't know. They did the first movie, and I was like, oh, this is such a great concept for a movie. Like, it's mind blowing. You're like, oh, and then like the second one, they literally had commercials on TV. I think they were selling Pepsi or something, and I was like, oh, you've
Wow.
lost the thread entirely.
They sold out that much. I
Like
actually don't
literally,
remember
the
that.
whole concept is now gone because you're selling fucking sugar water with it.
Have you noticed that I don't think The Matrix is quite old enough, but when I look at older movies, let's say for instance, I'm just thinking like the old Planet of the Apes, the original.
Yep.
And there's these long shots of panning and stuff, and my mind is also digitally wrecked like everyone else.
For
It's
sure.
slow. I actually get bored. I'm like,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is beautiful and stunning. Why am I getting bored?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I can't do with black and white movies anymore. I get too fucking, yeah, I can't.
But the kids now are like that with all our old media.
They're just watching fucking YouTube, fucking shorts.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. All this mainlining YouTube
One
shorts.
1 minute is too long.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I worked in advertising, and when I was working at Abercrombie and Fitch, it was like we were doing 30-second ads, but then it was like, no, we need to start doing like 10-second ones. And this was like 2019, and that was kind of mind blowing. But now it's like, oh yeah, of course, 10 seconds. It's a great length.
Well, even podcasts like what we're doing and videos, like my students, I record my lectures.
Mm-hmm.
My students tell me a lot of them play back 2x speed.
But interestingly, podcasts is like one area, and I don't know what the demo is for any, podcasts, but like there's a lot of very long form podcasts out there.
I love them.
And I think that's speaks more to people's need for connection than anything else, right?
It's a much more intimate form of media.
And people want to hear, because people aren't conversing with their friends and loved ones anymore, so they just want to hear Andrew Huberman or whatever talk to somebody, whoever. So do you find yourself, like, for me, I find myself having to stop and just take a break from podcasts because I find that sometimes I will be using podcasts just constantly to keep myself from thinking.
To
avoid
the
thought.
pain of dealing with yourself.
To actually stop my brain from thinking. And that's not a healthy inclination, I don't think. I think that continually distracting myself is a good, like, we live in the most distractible culture of all time. You've got more media than you know what to ever fucking do with. People are like, well, there's nothing on fucking to watch. Are you fucking kidding? There's fucking so many fucking things
insane.
to watch.
I struggle to remember the before times, which is half my life, where the norm was boredom. You just had thoughts buzzing in your head. You just sit on a bus. Maybe you'd bring something to read.
Right.
Maybe you'd have a little music. It wasn't as distracting.
Right.
That wasn't, and I sort of forget that.
Right. You watch this one movie over and over.
My boredom time is probably like 5% of what it was. I don't spend that much. I mean, I do in contemplation just for research. Like I guess my job actually needs to have some of that, but it's still less. I don't get bored much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, if you're bored in this day and age, you have to be bored on purpose.
Yeah. But like, wait, our brains were designed in a situation where it's mostly bored and hungry.
Right.
And now, if you're at least in the developed world, you're never bored and hungry.
This is why meditation and stuff are taking off, because this is
Is there just an Ozempic for the mind? Screw that. Let's just take a pill, man.
right. Yeah, fuck that shit. Yeah, I saw Weight Watchers went out of business, went bankrupt.
Oh,
I mean, they're all going to go down. The pills are
it's
going to.
the most American thing I've ever seen. You have to just keep taking this drug. And
No, it's not even a pill. It's an injection. You have to inject yourself with that shit. Ozempic is
Correct,
an injection.
yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Every fucking day or something. For the rest of your life, you got to inject a fucking.
and send money to the Danish government. It's glorious.
I mean, I got no problem with Denmark
Maybe the mind Ozempic is Ritalin
or Adderall or something.
or something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I think we actually are going to change as a species. This stuff is so disruptive. Maybe it has something to do with the low birth rates. I don't know. Right, but there's a biological, social, there's everything pressure from technology, and our monkey brains are being challenged, I think.
Yeah, I do wonder how this all plays out. It seems like we are heading to, I mean, there's a pattern in history that every 50 years, like some sort of a very large change happens. You look at the 60s, you look at the 1920s, you look at, there's big changes happen in these patterns every like in global changes even, right? Because even in the 20s and 30s, there was stuff going on in Mexico. There were revolutions going on all over the world. Same with the 60s. Same with now, right? I just feel like they've become increasingly large, and perhaps every generation feels this way, every generation that goes through it. But like this one feels for some reason more inescapable and more consequential than the ones in the past, I have trouble seeing a smoothing out, right? Because like after the 60s, you had like the 70s and the 80s, which were kind of a bit of a smoothing out of things. There was, of course, inflation in the 70s and energy crisis. Well, but still, it wasn't like this madness, right? I just don't see what 2030 it being like, oh, Trump's gone and now everything's kind of smoothing out again. Maybe it will. There's a very valid argument to be made, I feel like, that it could happen.
I mean, I suspect we're in the century scale change globally because the US dollar dominance has peaked. We're not going back to that.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, I don't know. You get all these other factors like AI, possibly cryptocurrency. I don't know how long all that will take to sort out. And then also the mind disruptors, the change to the psychic landscape between social media and, well, I mean, ChatGPT and LLMs, these are being used by teenagers as conversation partners.
Sure. No, it's yeah, no. And for like, other partners as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Massive effects to the psychic landscape. You're talking to something that doesn't think like a human and doesn't talk like a human. This is the worst AI will ever be.
Right. This is the most attractive we'll ever be.
We're gonna find out. We live in interesting times.
We do, and isn't that was the punishment though? The won't be living interesting times was actually a warning, a punishment. That was the original quote was considered
from
like,
the Chinese people.
the Chinese people, right?
Yes,
right.
All of us here have done something karmically wrong, and here we are in this new landscape. What was it? They called it the Age of Aquarius in the 60s.
They did, yeah.
Probably some other thing now that translates to hellish landscape.
I mean, I remember, but again, I always think back to like when I wanted a computer so badly when I was a kid, and now I wish that I could and not all the time, but sometimes I'm just like if we could all get rid of it together, it'd be perfect. But they can't because
I've joked about that. So creating a Amish community, but frozen at like 2007 or so. So all tech is okay up to 2007.
That'd be a funny movie or a
right?
TV show or something.
So like you get Facebook, but like the cool one with the wall. You didn't get news on Facebook.
Oh yeah, that was when that went downhill.
Right? So actual social media.
I think I would
dollar,
even go way before
ads.
Even Facebook. I would go before even the internet, frankly.
Well, it's okay. We can have a violent schism in the community.
Would it be like the Amish when they keep changing the rules as technology goes ahead? They continue to change the rules.
Yeah,
for their own.
Precisely. Yeah.
When they have that Ramschmergen, what is it called? When they get the kids get Ramspringer. Yeah.
Ramspringer. Yeah.
So they'll have like a extension cords from their car into the window of their bedroom so they can play like video games. Like it's crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's not even okay.
And the drug parties that apparently they have.
Oh, wow.
Because I grew up in Cleveland and there was Amish country just out there, and apparently the parties that the Ramspringer kids have were epic.
This going back thing reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend. She's a journalist that was studying at Berkeley. That's where I met her, and she was from Cameroon, and a fairly like poor village from there. And she told me she went back and people there are quite literally close to dirt poor and incredibly happy. They just kind of chill and, they have enough food and they sort of just, and so I said, you don't seem as happy here. She said, no. And I said, why don't you go back? And she says, I can't. It's like, well, why don't we just throw away our phones? How many people do you know that's actually thrown away their phones?
Yeah.
You can't go back. It's you've eaten the apple or whatever analogy you want to play. Like you know too much now. You can't go back.
Yeah, I would like to find a way to like detox a little bit though. People have forgotten how to enjoy to live in the moment. Like I've spent a lot of my life living in this place where I was like, and maybe this is even part of this idea for the podcast, but I spent a lot of my time living in a place where I was like thinking about the future. It was like thinking, okay, this is not my life. My life's coming. It's some future thing down the road. Like this isn't actually it. It's coming down the road. But then one day I was just like, no, this is it. This has always been it. Me and you sitting here talking, this is life. This is the thing that we are living for. It's not coming. It's not behind us. It's right fucking now.
That's a very kind of Buddhist concept, right? The only real thing is the
Sure.
thing we have in front of us.
Right.
Everything else is kind of just fakery or just there to kind of help us guide the moment.
The past is gone. The future is
The future
coming.
does not exist.
The future
yet.
doesn't
Yeah.
exist, but this is it. This is it. So, yeah.
We just need the pill for that, Jeff.
Do we need a pill, or do we just need to meditate more or something and just like turn
There's
our
a pill
phones
for
off for a little
no.
while?
We're in America. What are you talking about? Meditating, all that work.
It's not that hard.
Just get the pill. Denmark will come up with something.
Yeah, Denmark will do
Take
it.
the present pill. You'll be as good as a monk.
We can't rely on Denmark
It'll be
to fix all
great.
of our problems.
All us despondent nerds will just keep getting proven wrong by the next pill. It'll be glorious.
Despondent nerds. Maybe that's going to be the title of the podcast.
The DN podcast.
Despondent nerds.
You'll never put it up, and then it'll end up in AI, and in like 2300 or something, this will be the biggest podcast.
Oh, I'm actually going to put this up this time. Like, I'm actually going to do
sweet.
it. Yeah.
Should we start putting in ads?
Yeah, I got to
you
get
gotta
money for
monetize,
this. I got to
right?
monetize
You
that.
should get paid, man.
Yeah, we have to start talking about the products we're using. Let's see. What kind of wine are we drinking?
Well,
I'm really enjoying this Trader Joe's Grand Reserve wine. Hello, Trader Joe's.
shout out to Trader Joe's.
Hashtag Trader Joe's wine. What brings you joy, Chen?
Getting new insights. And it doesn't have to be new to everyone, just new to me. Like that aha moment is worth a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like I'm advancing as a human being, but it just also feels damn good, you know?
Sure.
So that probably gives me the most joy is to feel like I get something. For some reason in my childhood, I felt like I was often in a haze or just things didn't quite make sense. Everything was very confusing. I never managed to put it together. But somehow through my maybe late 20s and to now, things make sense. And so being able to put things together and have it make sense, I don't know, that feels incredible.
That's interesting. So, like, when you were a child, it was like, what didn't make sense? Like your emotional world, or just like the world in general, or what? What do you mean?
Yeah, a lot of the world in general.
Mhm.
It just like, or school or something. It just, I couldn't put it all together in a framework. It never felt like understanding. That there's a feeling of understanding, which interestingly enough is kind of separate from understanding itself. Like if you ever take more psychedelic,
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
explorations or
yeah.
whatever, people can be, whoa, dude, I get it, and you write it down, and it's just completely incoherent.
Sure.
Right. But I didn't have that feeling for a long time, and maybe that's what drove me later on to really look for that. I mean, I'm an academic. My profession is to look for understanding of phenomena.
Mm.
That really does, I think, bring me a lot of joy. Is just sort of getting stuff.
Were you socially awkward when you were younger?
I'm probably still socially awkward. I think it was a little bit alienating. I mean, I was in gifted programs.
Yeah.
And I was very far from my age intellectually, I think.
Sure.
So probably at like 7 years old, I had the vocabulary of an adult.
Right.
So yeah, there's some level of alienation from that. I don't know if that's awkward per se, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I relate to that. I wasn't in the gifted program, but I was a theater kid, so I was going to I was in plays in the theater, I was in the paper, and that's not popular in middle school when kids are.
Though if we talk teenagers, I mean, how many people really didn't feel awkward?
I think there's definitely people who didn't feel awkward.
But it must be a minority.
The cool kids,
yeah.
the kids who learned how to play the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't. I was socially, awkward for much of my younger years. It's funny how those younger experiences kind of, you don't realize it until you get older and you're like, oh, that younger shit really does fucking stick with you for your rest of your fucking life, doesn't it? It's kind of stays there.
Isn't that nice?
It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just weighed down by the barnacles of life.
But being aware of it is the important part, because as long as if you're aware of it, you can at least kind of fight against it. I think a lot of people aren't even aware of their shit, don't even bother processing it. I think.
I feel like, especially the teenage, you're discovering who you are. That's a very interesting thing, because you don't come with a knowledge of who you are. You learn that through feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think there's a common instinct to try to fight who you are. Some of it is noble, but a lot of it's futile, right? As you get older, a lot of it is more about working with what you're given.
Sure.
Right?
And recognizing your gifts,
Yeah,
which
and
I took a
weaknesses,
long time for me to figure out what I was good at and what I wasn't good at.
Huh. What do you think you're good at?
I'm creative.
Yeah.
I've always been
Yeah.
that's been my
I think that's why we get along. I think I'm also very creative.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like it just is easy to generate a lot of ideas or to think from different angles of the same thing.
Yeah. Part of the reason, another reason for the podcast is like I've needed a place to like focus my creative energies on for a long time, and I feel like this is at least something that I can do. So the last 4.5 years I've been working for that political organization that shall not be named. But I've been working alone, right? I've been working remotely in my house by myself for maybe 5 years since COVID, for a long time. Not a lot of human interaction, right? Not a lot of human interaction at all. And like that is not, it's not good for anybody, but I just is not good for me. And I feel like perhaps part of the doing the podcast is to like make up for lost time, just to be like, all right, here's an excuse to get people in my house to talk to them for a couple hours. You know what I mean? Also that people just don't talk anymore as well, but
it's a lost art.
It really is,
Yeah.
to a degree that I don't think that most people even recognize.
It used to be huge, especially like big parties, dinner parties.
People are
Right,
so
the art of
awkward now.
like the French had mastered that in
Yeah.
their most like
Yeah,
indulgent times.
I
or
keep
whatever.
thinking about having like dinner parties again. I think it'd be fun, but I also think they have to be like guided dinner parties, whereas like here's the theme and here's what we're all going to talk about or something like.
Well, I think that's, for instance, why millennials love board games.
Because you
it's
can
like-
just focus on the board game.
Yeah, it's the lost social arts. The rule part of it is also that the common rules are thrown out, and also millennials. The demographics had started to change quite a bit in this country,
Right.
and it's like, well, now you don't necessarily have shared culture as much. So you create a shared culture, a common ground, a set of rules we can all look at.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's going to be a whole nother podcast on what's actually wrong with America, because I think
What?
that
Just
there's
one?
something profoundly wrong. It's a particular American ailment that is really.
You think there's something like uniquely?
I don't know, but I think it's at this point a combination of factors. But
Like, I, as a Canadian, I actually worry how much of the maladies here are actually contained here, and how much is just Canada lagging behind.
I haven't spent a lot of time in Canada, but I feel like your choice for the next prime minister was a good one. Even though he used to be a fucking banker and shit, so
Goldman
it's the
Sachs
same game.
banker.
It's the same fucking game. It's the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
fucking
That's
game.
why I'm worried about the lag.
But I mean, it's always kind of
Like,
been. There's
I-
not been like the
I think he'll
same
do a technically good job, but how much of this is
technically,
just
right.
yeah? I mean, how much of this is just the pressure building up in the balloon? I don't know.
I mean, meanwhile in Mexico, the president of Mexico is fucking got a PhD in engineering from Berkeley. So
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
yeah, and they love her.
Is that
right?
Claudia Sheinbaum, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
they have the mayor of Mexico City is also a woman. So,
Uh.
and they're like the 10th happiest country in the world.
So
according to
the
whatever
hat and the
metrics.
pants are.
I don't know, but they're doing something right. I mean, there's certainly problems in Mexico. No, don't get me wrong.
Right.
They're running out of water. The fucking city's sinking. Blah 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 blah. But people there seem to be very very happy.
Everyone can agree there's a lot wrong in this country, and that's, I think, causing political turmoil because there's no agreement on how to fix that.
Oh, I can tell you how to fix it.
Yeah.
You get the money out of the politics. That's the agreement. That's the way you do it. You get the fucking money.
Yeah, well,
but I don't wanna
Supreme
go-
Court decision. We're gonna need a new constitution or something,
You'd have to do a constitutional
Yeah.
amendment. I don't. This is not a political podcast.
right?
Okay, another question for Chen. Let's see. What is a question that you wish people would ask you?
I like the happiness question, and that I like. I went back on that as I don't feel like I gave a complete answer. That's really like what brings you meaning or joy, and I actually think the creative process is that's the other part of it, right? There's insight, and then there's like this urge. Maybe it's narcissistic, but I feel like it's more universal to somehow connect that feeling. You know, that feeling that you're really getting at. Somehow you've captured the little sliver of the universe, and you want everyone to know that.
Did you read the article in the Times about the happiness study, the longest happiness study that's ever been done?
Oh, I think I did. The Harvard folks.
I don't know what school,
I think they're Harvard students.
what it was, but it was like 50 years or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, essentially, it was the stuff that was like other people. It was like doing things for other people, being with other people, talking to other people, interacting with other people. These are the things that generally bring us happiness.
Isn't that baffling?
It's
Why is it in a time of ultimate freedom and material abundance that we do that less than ever before? Is there just something broken with the human software?
That's actually a really interesting question. Is that why is it that the thing that that has been proven to bring us the most happiness is
And
the thing
health,
that we are,
right?
yes, that
Isolation will undermine your health.
the
and
thing
this
that we are.
Yeah.
I think people
we're spending less time with each other than ever before.
For sure. I think people are overthinking everything probably.
Or is it that, I mean, we're not necessarily happiness chasing engines.
Community's gone too. I mean, the idea of community, I really, really would love to have more community in my life. I think everybody would. The idea of like, I don't know how well you know your neighbors, but
I
I don't
barely
really,
know my neighbors.
Me too. And I wish I did. I wish I lived in a world in which I have a few friends who are like, oh yeah, I love my neighbors. And I'm like, fuck you.
You want a community so you can flip them off.
Right. Fuck you. You fucking bragging about you. I hang out with my neighbors all the time. Fuck you. Anyway, it upsets me, and I feel like this is a thing.
It's sadly, I just feel like we can't go back.
I think it's the internet. I think is a lot of it. I think it's the internet has really made us into this technology that has been pitched to us as a technology to bring us all together is actually a technology to push us further apart from each other. Because that's how it was sold. The internet was to bring us all together as a human. You know, you can call people around the world at any time, but really, when do you call people around the world at any time? Almost never.
I feel like
we don't even answer the phone anymore.
When I revisit your question, because I couldn't really come up with an answer. I think the reason I can't come up with an answer, what do I really wish people would ask me, is because I'm asked a lot of things a lot. Anyway,
because you're a teacher, right?
Yeah, I mean, or I go like I'll be on an AI panel in Toronto later in the month, and I'm voicing my opinions all the time.
Right, but I'm not even talking about that's surfacey stuff. What I'm trying to get at is like, is there something that's a deeper thing that you wish people would ask you? Not like, what AI model do you think will,
right.
Whatever, you know what I mean?
I feel like I'm too assertive for that to be an issue. I just let people know what I'm thinking.
All right, fair enough.
There's nothing I sort of just bottle up and
fair enough.
Don't really just shout loudly from the rooftops.
We'll accept that answer. Yeah. We'll accept that answer. Any regrets?
You mean about just period of life?
Anything at all? Anything at all? Anything you look back on, you're like, I wish I wouldn't have fucking done that. This podcast aside,
yeah. I'm like, well, the regret will come from the consequences.
Right. You get deported. Yes.
No, I guess regret doesn't make as much sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In some, okay, I mean, I won't completely. It's like, was there something I could have done better? It's hard because it's like, you know, let's say you travel back in time and talk to your old self. Would you really listen? Would there be enough to like?
Would you even believe it was
right?
You? Yeah.
So I don't know that's
fuck you,
that
old
even
man.
Makes sense. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think free will exists?
I like to believe it does exist.
Well, sure, we all want to believe that it exists. I mean, that's human nature.
Well, I do think that when you're outside the realm of science, it is a question of belief. In fact, even within the realm of science, probability is
cause and effect thing too. I mean, you say
but we don't have, like I said, 90% of the universe. We don't know how shit works.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. We only know the corner of things that we.
This could very well be a simulation.
So I think there's room enough to just simply assert, yes, there is free will. Depending how you define it. I mean, there's a lot of nuance. I've heard philosophers argue about it, but yeah, I think so.
I think there's some, but not a lot. I think that a lot of the things have been predetermined.
I think maybe in the more important aspect of free will, which is like, how does that affect your subjective decision making? You should absolutely function as though free will exists.
Well, sure.
We
because
apes are not.
Right.
So but that's a form of reality, and maybe that's more real. You know, back to Buddhist stuff. Like the subjective is the only thing we really have. The objective is models for what we're facing subjectively. In that sense, then free will is very much exists.
But even you saying that could be predetermined. Like even you having the idea that we shouldn't act as if free will isn't a thing is
right. I'll leave that to the AI that can simulate me.
Right. Can't wait.
But I think it's like the question of meaning of life, right? I think the reason that question is asked is not for like a mathematical equation. I mean, maybe some people actually want that, but for the most part, it's just kind of like, is there a solid guide for choosing how to do things morally, in terms of motivation, etc.? It's all about the subjective experience, and that's a realm I think where I'm very open to things.
Do you believe in like God or anything to this effect? Anything above?
Personally, no.
Right.
I don't even know what that would look like. I certainly believe we don't know one tiny fraction of what is happening in our universe.
Sure.
We don't understand time properly or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, again, this is with background where I know the sort of predictions and physical processes, et cetera. I'm not saying I have an experiment to disprove gravity or something,
Right.
but it's clear we don't explain even the things we just measure,
Right.
let alone the thing that really matters, which is subjective.
Right. Eggs used to be bad for you. Now they're good for you again. So that's even a small
Oh,
example.
yeah. I mean, again, that's the object, but the subjective, I think, is its own thing. So yeah, I don't have a vision of what a deity would look like. And to the extent that I would simulate that, I feel like I would just have something like a parental voice in my head.
Right.
I don't feel like that's a god.
I mean, we are just like energy, right? Energy doesn't just disappear. So, like, perhaps I'm gonna fucking delete this part of the podcast, right? It's gonna be edited out. But I
And
feel
we're pretty sober, by the way. Let me just.
I feel like there is. I feel like there is an element. I feel like when my father died and we burned him, I thought, well, his energy is going somewhere else, right? I mean, it sounds esoteric or hippy dippy, but like, I think that there is some element of energy and consciousness that we don't understand. I think if there is an afterlife, if there is something that happens after this, then it has something to do with these energy, consciousness, blah 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 blah. Like, or it's just a long dream, which would be fine with me.
Have you heard of panpsychism?
No.
It has a rigorous definition. Like, it's from philosophy, I believe, or at least they study it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I can produce exactly, but roughly speaking, is that there's consciousness that pervades all matter in the universe.
Right. Okay.
And that, one idea, well, we talk about these simulations, right? It's just like, well, what if, because there seems to be a lot of like rigid rules that governs everything in our physical universe, and maybe one can just run it on a computer or something, but to what end? And if there is a God, I mean, maybe there's something that wants to experience everything. It's just like the ultimate TV is to be alive in the rocks and the walls and everything at the same time.
Right.
And nothing can really preclude that because it's a subjective. So I think there's a lot that can fit in the massive gaps of ignorance we have scientifically. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling. I think the rational thing is to just be open to all possibilities that fit with the evidence. And that does include panpsychism.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm open to I'm open to deities and whatever else, but the deities are very weird and beyond our ape brains because they're, I don't know. I haven't seen angels come down and
No.
hand me a sandwich or whatever.
No. I mean, I read the whole Bible, and at the end of it, I was like, it's boring.
But, maybe some ridiculously high-dimensional being decided to create the universe for fun and is living his consciousness through all of us simultaneously. Sure, why not?
Or maybe we're just like on somebody's fucking leftover computer in somebody's kid's closet, an experiment that he did fucking in high school 2 millennia ago or something.
In some ways, I think the weirdest thing would be just it just is what it do be. Like, there's a big bang, and then there's matter, and then eventually it all dissipates, and that's it for no good damn reason.
See, that's the one that terrifies me. That's the one I used to lie awake at night when I was a kid thinking
very
about.
confusing, though. Why?
That this is
Right?
it. Yeah, yeah. Because it's very hard for me to comprehend the idea that this is just...
But then you get other whys, because if there's some higher being that created this, what created that, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And maybe there's just something very wrong with how we understand time, too, that might clarify that.
Right. Maybe.
So the idea of a beginning or end, and we get into sci-fi and all that.
I read more Kurt Vonnegut books.
Yeah. So sure, yeah, all of the above. That's what I believe. All of the above simultaneously. We're just apes, man. Like, we don't know what we can't grasp.
We're a little better than apes. Just a little bit.
I don't know. Gorillas are peaceful-ish, at least.
True. Sometimes, yeah.
I feel like we're better than chimps.
Bonobos are having way more fun than we are.
Bonobos are probably better
they're
than
having
us,
the best
too.
time of
I
all
think we're like middling apes. I think we're kind of around the
Right.
average, honestly.
All right, so last question
Yeah.
kind of runs in with what we're doing. What do you think happens after we die?
Well, I don't know. Maybe we reincarnate. I'd like to. If I'm gonna just pick something that
No, I'm
kind
not
of
asking you to pick
comforts me.
something. What do you genuinely think happens based on what you understand of the universe or whatever you believe? What do you genuinely, not what comforts you, not
What I genuinely believe, when I don't know things, I actually do keep the entire spread of possibilities.
All right, that's an interesting.
I'm just in a state of not knowing.
Sure.
Well, I mean, within bounds,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm not going to go haunt a house in a pseudocorporeal because I've just never seen that. No one has definitively seen, et cetera.
Right.
So, but the things I can't rule out is things like, well, maybe consciousness is a very interesting thing. And it can be, if you sort of explore, I've done meditation, and it seems like you can be aware without all the other artifice of what makes us human or an individual, right? So like memory, take away my memory and I can still be conscious. Take away my sensory experience, I can still be conscious. So I think one guess is that thread continues and maybe passing through all of us simultaneously. So when you die, all the bits of you certainly die, and that doesn't seem to really pass on in a direct sense.
Right.
There may be some idea, there's an interesting idea that maybe ghosts in some ways are the memories of you firing in the minds of others or in the art patterns, etc. But, something about consciousness, which, again, in some sense, it's the only real thing. Everything else being a model, an abstraction. The thing that we're constantly experiencing, maybe that just keeps going. It's unclear what that even is. We don't really have a good scientific grasp. So my guess is maybe that part doesn't die.
Which part again?
The thing that is aware, that experiences. Maybe that just sort of follows things that can be experienced. Maybe it's not even one thing, right? Time and place. I don't know.
It's a real trip, this existence thing.
It is.
The older you get, the more trippy it is.
Yeah.
Like the more you experience of this existence thing, the more it's like, whoa, what even is?
Because you've been in different states, right?
Right. And what even is this?
And with all the different brain modes, there's still something that's always aware, even if you don't quite recall what that was like.
Right.
And in some ways, that's the primary thing. And because it's subjective, and in some ways we can't, depending how you define this, it's not something you can actually grasp. The only real thing, which is your present experience.
Right.
Because, for scientific experience, for that thing which is so-called objective, we have to have mutually agreed upon, or at least we can each independently sort of verify things. I have no way of verifying how you really feel.
I can't verify your reality either.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the only thing I really know. Everything else.
And all of it is kind of an
It's
illusion,
assumptions.
really. Like it's all just chemicals being fired in my head to make this what I'm seeing here. And
so actually, it reminds me, this year, I teach in the interdisciplinary empowerment program, the NSF-funded, rest in peace NSF-funded traineeship. Anyway, I covered this course on probability and statistics. And the main thing I was pointing out is that probability is an expression of subjective beliefs. They're not actually things per se. They are assumptions and then numbers associated with those assumptions and beliefs. I think people tend to say things like the probability, but that's actually pretty misleading verbiage.
Huh.
Yeah.
I can't quite wrap my head around that, but I'll think about that tonight as I try
We can
to fall
talk about
asleep.
more of that sort of in the future. It's a very interesting thing, but that is like foundational. You can build up all of probability from this. It's pretty much like subjective probabilities that came from gambling. And that's the foundation of scientific empiricism.
And that's what happened when we die.
On that note.
Thank you, Chen, for doing this. I appreciate
Thanks
it,
so much. This is
man.
my first podcast, or I guess second to something that's just vaguely recorded.
No, thanks, dude. This was totally fun. Appreciate you coming. Yeah.
Appreciate the Trader Joe's wine. Shout out to the Reserve.
Yeah. We're going to get that sponsorship any day now. All right. Thanks, man.
And that was some interesting esoterica from Chen Chen. Did you learn anything? I did. Thank you again to Chen for coming on the podcast, and thank you again for listening. I know I thank you a lot, but I really am grateful, so I shall continue to thank you over and over. I'm presently in my childhood bedroom in my mom's house. We are leaving for Ireland in a matter of hours, so I gotta get this done. As always, please like, rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Hack the speakers at a sports stadium and blast it during a game you don't really care about. Whatever works, because my marketing team is still being assembled, and I could use all the help I can get. You can email the podcast at 1fjeffpod@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at 1fjeff. But what you should really do is sit down with someone you know, or someone you don't know, or someone you kinda know, Don't be creepy. And have a conversation. Any kind of conversation. Just talk. You'll both feel better afterwards. I promise. Thanks again for listening. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.
Very good, Jeffrey.